Today we are going to continue talking about the f sound. And we know that the f sound can be made by the consonant team PH. So in the English language, we have a lot of words that come from other languages and have different ways of spelling a sound. For example, PH, where the PH is borrowed from Greek. So if we know which English words are spelled with the PH sound for f, then we know that those words come from Greek origin. So let's think of one, for example, pharmacy. The word pharmacy means a place where you go to get medicine. Maybe now an example of a pharmacy would be Walgreens or CVS or something. And since a pharmacy, we know at the beginning is spelled with a PH, we can infer that that word is probably Greek. And so we know that the PH at the beginning says f. We wouldn't pronounce it like pharmacy, it's f. So another word would be phosphate. Let's think of the word phosphate. It's not a very common word that we use today. Phosphate is a scientific name for a kind of chemical. So what language do you think phosphate comes from? Greek. So the two f sounds in phosphate, if we know that it is a Greek word, how would we spell the f sound in phosphate? PH. PH at the beginning and in the middle of phosphate would be spelled with PH. Let's think of another. What about the word philosophy? That one I can also hear two f sounds. Philosophy. So let's think of that word. Do you think that word would be spelled with an F or with a PH? Philosophy. We can even look at how we would spell it. We can compare. Sometimes when we don't know how to spell a word, we can obviously look it up because we have that tool now, but we could also try to spell it. So if I know philosophy, and we will get into building some words together. So that would be how I would spell it with the PH, philosophy. But if I'm kind of on the fence and I don't know, I could spell it with an F, philosophy. And I can kind of tell based on how much I have read and how much I have spelled that the PH would be the right way to spell it. So I would know that this word is Greek, and this word would then be spelled with a PH instead of with an F. But let's look at another one, like the word foot. Is the f sound in foot represented with an F or with a PH? This one is a little bit more of a common word and a more commonly used and spelled word, so I know that it's spelled with an F, and that also tells me that the word foot is probably not Greek because it's not a PH sound. So now that we've looked at some on the whiteboard, let me take out my letters so that we can build some of these words together and we can really see what that looks like. So we're going to build words with the consonant team PH. So let me make sure I have my PH. Yes, okay. So in all of these words, how do you think we are going to spell the f sound? We're going to be focusing on the f represented by the PH consonant team. So let's first build the word sulfur. How many syllables are in the word sulfur? There's two. Let's say them together. Sulfur. So let's break down the first syllable, sul. So I hear s-a-o in sul. So I'm going to use the S, the U, and the L. That's my first syllable in sulfur, is sul. Let me straighten that a little bit. That's crooked. All right. So my first syllable is sul. The second syllable in sulfur is fur. So how do you think the f sound is spelled in this word? It's PH. So I'm going to use the PH. Sulfur. What vowel sound do you hear in fur? Is the sound. So we will spell the sound with the small letter UR. But it can also be represented with ER, but in this particular word, it's UR. So the two syllables that we spelled, sulfur, let's put them together. Sulfur, sulfur. Nice job. Now let's spell the word pharmacy, one of the Greek words that we just talked about. Okay, so we know that it's a Greek word, so then the f sound at the beginning will be represented with a PH. The PH. Let's look at the syllables and let's spell each syllable one at a time. So the syllables in pharmacy are pharmacy. Pharmacy. So let's spell the first word, far. We have R. R is the vowel sound I hear in pharmacy. Far. So that will be represented with an AR. Pharmacy. And although it sounds like a U, just like we know in words like camera and panda, that is going to be represented with an A. And I'm going to extend this so we can see some of the other sounds that we could use. Pharmacy. C. I'm going to borrow this suffix sound right here. Pharmacy is represented by a CY. So the word that we built, pharmacy. Pharmacy. Cool. So now let's spell a couple more words using the PH, the F sound. What about the word graphite? Graphite. Let's break it up into syllables. Graphite. Those are two syllables. So first, let's spell the first syllable, graph, which is kind of a common word that maybe you've seen in math, and we've talked about before too, I think. Graph. The sounds I hear in that first syllable, g, r. So I hear a G, g, r. It's an R, gr, a. That's my first syllable, graph. So I know that the sound that we're focusing on today is represented by the PH. Graphite is my second syllable. Graphite. Ite. So I hear the I sound. Graphite is a T. And if the I is a long vowel sound like in graphite, I can also assume that there is an E at the end. Graphite. Graphite. Let's do one more. Let's spell the word microphone. Microphone. I'll leave the PH down here because we more often than not will use it because that's what we're focusing on today. Okay, so the word is microphone. Let's spell it out one syllable at a time. Microphone. So microphone. Mic is spelled m. Oops. Let me put that back. We don't really need it today, but that's okay. I. Mic. Mic. That's going to be our C. Micro. Micro. R-O is my next syllable. Ro. Microphone. So R-O. Micro. Micro. microphone. The PH is going to be the start of the next syllable in microphone. So let me get my PH, which is right here. Microphone. So what's the next letter? I need to find another one because I don't have one on my board. Is O, microphone. Microphone. N. The next sound I hear is an N. And just like with graphite, my last syllable has a long vowel sound. So what do I need at the end? I need an E. Microphone. 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 Very nice job. These consonant teams are a really good way to remember how certain patterns are spelled when we're spelling bigger words like microphone or philosophy or phosphate, which are some words that you might start to see as you get older and you start to study different subjects in school. So this will be good when you're writing and you're reading. To remember these patterns and to remember these consonant teams that we're working with. So really good job. See you next time.